glad you're here. Welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. I talk a lot about the four archetypes, king, warrior, magician, and lover, and I thought it was really important to have a better understanding of the hero's journey. So I invited Philip Folsom, who is the co-founder of the K4 Men's Group, and he did a really good job of encapsulating this very large subject into a 45-minute podcast. He's a wise man and a great teacher, and I think you'll really enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, and welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. Today, our guest is Philip Folsom. Hello, Philip.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you do, what your vision is, and anything you think is important for us to know?
Boy, I just love, right before we hit record, you were saying that some of the men you've been talking to have shared that men's work has saved their lives. And I think we might as well get right up to cruising altitude right off the bat. Because I corroborate that, and that's the reason why I'm in men's work. I'm an Army veteran and somebody who struggled with depression and addiction and some of the bigger challenges in my life. And obviously it stems from a core inadequacy issues that men have who are uninitiated. So of course, I didn't really understand that idea or even have that language when I first started this journey. The men's work that I've been in for close to 30 years is really uncovering some of these best practices. And male suicide is up almost 40%, so it's not just a personal growth good thing to do. This is a survival protocol for the American man.
So it's not just somebody who's trying to enhance themselves or lead a better life. I mean, we really are at a crisis point.
Clinical depression, anxiety, addiction, ultimately suicide, which is a response to a life without meaning. Mm-hmm. And men's work dives straight into that. And I believe, and I'm also a consultant for large organizations around the world. And I am absolutely positive that men's work is the tip of the spear in applied leadership. It really is the best work that I see humanity currently doing today.
Can you say a little bit about that? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Leadership is intentional decision making. Leaders are people whose decisions affect other people. Mm. So the study of decision making is vast. In fact, the word decide contains the same root as homicide and suicide. So in Latin, side means to cut or kill. So those of us who are making decisions, if we are the deciders, then we're dealing with what we give birth to and what we kill off.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very powerful idea. That applied psychology is how people shape their individual lives, their partnerships, their families, their organizations, and ultimately societies.
Okay.
That's leadership.
So you said you've been in this area, this field for 30 years. I'm guessing that you started as a novice. Were you seeking to heal or help yourself?
There's a thing called pre-trauma, and this is an important dynamic for a lot of men and women. And you obviously have women who are listening to this, because in my experience, being involved in a lot of different men's programs, not only my own, there's a tremendous amount of women who are trying to get in because they love men, or they love their men, or they're looking for a man to love who is available and not an adolescent boy pretending to be a man. So my journey was addressing the pre-trauma piece. Pre-trauma are the events that we have when we're usually under the age of 7. And that's your formative core psychological foundation. And all people take on pre-trauma because at that young age, you are marginalized, you have no power, you can't defend your boundaries. And so things are taken from you and forced on you. And this is called pre-trauma. And it's particularly sharp when it deals with poverty or neglect or abuse or any of these events that happen. And it turns out that pre-trauma is one of the number one factors in looking at post-traumatic stress and how resilient men are, particularly who go into certain fields like first responders, military, hospitals, entrepreneurship. These are all high trauma fields. And the reason why high trauma men enter high trauma fields is that we're looking for power, we're looking for structure, we're looking for freedom, and we're attempting to either heal the wound or fill the hole that was left from our pre-trauma. And that was my story, and it's the story of almost every single veteran, police, and fire that you know. We have 3 times the amount of pre-trauma as the average civilian man.
Yeah. How do you figure that out? Is there an assessment?
There's a number of assessments, and what's wonderful about our current, like when I talk about applied leadership or psychology, the work that is happening in the veterans field in particular, and it's being very quickly followed by all of our first responder industries, is that they're exploring resiliency at a very active rate. And it's exciting. And it was, again, that wasn't something that was altruism, it's a good thing to do. This was a survival protocol because I think we all know the rate of veteran suicide. And for you listeners who don't, since 9/11, we've had under 8,000 deaths in combat in all of our various excursions around the world. In that same period of time, since 9/11, we have had over 150,000 deaths by suicide. And men have vastly higher numbers of suicides than women. What's causing that? And what is the solution to address that? That is what the current men's work movement is moving towards. And it's driven by the military, because the military had to deal with that. And Jordan Peterson talks about, if you have to fight a dragon, you should go to its lair before it comes to your village. In the military, we've been dealing with that dragon for as long as there have been militaries. And so that dragon of resiliency and suicide is now firmly in the villages of our civilian population.
Yeah.
And so everybody's going, holy cow, here's this dragon. And those of us in the military are kind of like, hey, yeah, we've been fighting that for a long, long time. And we happen to have a lot of weapons. It's great to see some of the resiliency best practices flowing back.
You started off and you had that pre-trauma piece. I'm assuming you got into the men's work sort of after your military.
Yeah. The men's work field is obviously connected intrinsically to humanity. There's always been men's work. And I've studied a lot of indigenous cultures. This is one of the things that I'm passionate about, particularly warrior reintegration rituals. There aren't societies that are purely, I'm talking about indigenous societies, that are purely patriarchal or matriarchal. It's always a combination, a partnership of the two. Like, we need each other. We're built for collaboration, and it's still happening. And patriarchy is definitely taken a bad rap recently. However, they fulfill very different roles in our tribal structure. The men, their job, besides defending and hunting and protecting and exploring and travel and all the rest of the extra tribal behavior that men traditionally do, our job is to take the boys at the appropriate age from your house and move them into their house. And that rite of passage involves the death of the old operating system, which is very individual-centric, and installing the new operating system of service that is required for men. So men's work has been around as long as there have been men. We have lost that initiation practice, and it is now coming back in waves. And the first wave hit in the late 80s, and then it died off. And now men's work is back with a furious vengeance. And it's really, really an exciting time.
Yeah, I think to your point there about the patriarchy and the furious vengeance, I do think a lot of people are nervous that we're going to swing back too far. Most people agree that there's something that needs to happen. I love that you're saying that, yes, we need each other. There's a dance, there's a balance. I mean, that's a super hopeful message.
It's a harmony. There is in everything going to be change. And so harmony implies a certain fluidity of events. And there are certain times where certain people are best suited to lead. And that versatility of our species is what drives adaptability. And that gave us the planet. Evolution is not survival of the fittest. Evolution is survival of the most adaptable. And so having differentiation between our gender roles, between personality styles, and this is what the archetypes is about that a lot of your listeners know. Those 4 archetypes are actually leadership styles. They're all incredibly valuable in different scenarios, which drives versatility within the tribe and adaptability as a tribe as a whole.
You had a quote by James Garfield on the K4 Instagram page that said, "I mean to make myself a man, and if I succeed in that, I shall succeed in everything else." And I don't know, to me, that's just a great introduction to this, the why of the hero's journey. Why do you put yourself through that?
That quote is referring to the transition going from a boy into a man. And that's that initiation process where the boy dies and the man is born. Boys are inherently focused on their own trauma, their own needs, their own desperate bottomless pit of external validation. That's the boy psychology. For all you listeners wondering about that, like, am I really a man? Are you serving? Are you able to sacrifice? Are you able to intentionally sacrifice the things you want in the short term for something greater, either in the long run or greater than yourself? That ability to intentionally sacrifice for the sacred is what a mature psychology is. If you're able to do that, if you're able to live like a man, then you'll be able to do everything else you want. You'll be able to make money, get in shape, have powerful relationships, raise a family. Like, you will be able to serve the kingdom because the currency of the kingdom is much more valuable and louder than the currency of validation.
Yeah.
And so when you become a man, it's not free. You have to put away childish things. There are many full-grown, physiologically adult males, not men, who are still playing video games. And if that offends some of you adult males who are listening to this, who think that you deserve to play video games, I would ask you, what are you sacrificing for all those hours? All those hours that you're killing space monsters, we need you. Society needs you to return to Gondor and man the walls and mentor the kids and all the things that men are required to do.
That makes me want to shout hallelujah. I don't know, it just kind of rose up in me like we're in church.
Preach!
That's right. I just did a post the other day that said, seek the kingdom first. And it was based on, there's a verse in the Bible that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added. And it's almost like that's just what you described. You do the sacrifices and you're seeking the kingdom, and all this other stuff is going to be added to you, the job or the whatever, but you have to do that work, that sacrificial work first.
And that's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
That is what is encoded in this ancient system of the human engagement with the unknown. So the hero's journey, aka the monomyth, a phrase by Joseph Campbell. If you don't know Joseph Campbell and you are a man, it is mandatory reading to maintain your man card, along with Iron John by Robert Bly and King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Dr. Moore and Dr. Gillette. Those are the 3 books you must read.
There's a book called Monomyth.
The book I would encourage you, and Joseph Campbell wrote a lot of books. The Power of Myth. Yeah, The Power of Myth is a nice digestible entry into Joseph Campbell's work. And so he's a mythologist, and he studied the cultures all around the world. And one of the things that he noticed, and this is along with Carl Jung and Freud, a bunch of just great thinkers of the previous generation, is that all of these central mythological teaching stories that all cultures have have the same plot. And this just shook him because it didn't matter if he was studying medieval mythology of Europe or sub-Saharan African mythology or Greek mythology, or even, going way out to, any of the, South American cultures. It's the same story. So he referred to that as the mono myth. There's only one story. And why we keep retelling this story is because it's encoded in our DNA as the unavoidable psychological response to the unknown. Men are going to go through these stages or this process, and if you understand what it is, then it will give you these three most important things. What these three things are the same things that any map will tell you. Really, the hero's journey is a map. It's a roadmap towards flourishing, building your kingdom, or becoming a king, or the hero. Maps tell you these three things. Number one, where are you? And there's a lot of lost men out there like, where am I? What is going on? What am I doing? Where am I? And so that's the first stage. Boy, once I know where I am, at least I'm here.
Very comforting to know where you are.
Yeah. And then number two, obviously, because we're predators. We have eyes in the front. We like to hunt. So we're always moving towards something or away from something. So the next thing that all maps, and the hero's journey in particular, provide is, where are we going? Where am I? Where am I going? Now, you would think that the next question is, well, how do I get there? And the truth is, you already know. You know exactly what you need to do. But what the hero's journey really tells you is, who do you need to be to get there?
Gotcha.
The hero's journey contains basically 4 different stages. And things are usually in either quadrants in mythology, or they show up in 3s.
I heard that 4 is the number of the earth, which kind of makes sense for the hero's journey.
There's 4 seasons. There's 4 directions. It's an easy way to look at the unknown, because the unknown is an incredibly complex thing. It's very hard to describe it. And so what maps do, and the hero's journey is the map. Maps, they are symbols that represent either objects or ideas that are too large or too complex to fully understand. So what a map does is it allows us to be able to engage with these gigantic, complex ideas or objects, and then be able to not only chart our course through them, but also to partner with each other. So if we share the same map, now we can build, we can hunt, we can travel, we can heal. And if we don't have a common mythology, then we're lost. We don't know how to interact with each other.
Well, gosh, that just explains a lot of what's going on right now, doesn't it? I mean, we
Bingo.
kicked out a lot of our rituals, our sacred times, our traditions. And so we're all just wandering around feeling empty and lost.
Correct. So all cultures require a common myth. And that may be a religion. It could be a society. It can be a common enemy. But there is a unifying thing that humanity requires. And at this point, America has none of these things. We have universally rejected politics and our government. We've rejected traditional spirituality. We don't really have a big threat that we can rally behind. So we've turned inward. And this is always going to happen. You see it happen with the Roman Empire. In Rome, they actually have statues of their enemies. And they believed, love thine enemy, in the same way that Jesus said it. But it was a very different application. Jesus is saying, forgive your enemy. With the Romans, they're like, thank you for being our enemy, because it defines us. It gives us vitality and focus. And they revered their enemy generals. Even when King Richard the Lionheart, he went to go on the Crusades and got deathly ill. And his opposite on the Persian side stopped the war because they knew that Richard was sick. And he sent ice from the mountains to cool him. There was a tremendous respect because they realized they needed each other. We need something to push against. It defines us. Light needs dark, men need women. There is a healthy tension between all things. So the hero's journey is a very good unifying myth because it's so universal. You can divide it up in a lot of different ways, but the quadrant model is clean and easy and effective. So stage one is the point in the story where the main character, and I use that word intentionally because they're not the hero yet, they're the main character, realizes that there's something missing in the world. They realize that they have lost something that they had, or that there's something that they want more of, or maybe there's something that they want less of, but something needs to change. This is your intuition. You can feel that something is off. A lot of us were to actually have access to these intuitions. They weren't buried under all of our social media and addictions and junk food and electronics have numbed us out to the point where we can't even hear her anymore. If we could hear that, we would all realize that there are things screaming at us and saying, this is absolutely wrong. Go back.
Yeah.
This is called the call to adventure in the story. Okay. And you can imagine Luke Skywalker standing on that desert planet Tatooine. And he's like, man, I know I'm meant for more than this. Or it's Dorothy in Kansas, who's getting bullied. She's poor. She's unhappy. That old lady's being mean to her dog. This is that call to adventure. It means it's time to handle your life. Engage with the dragon. And so the universe comes to Luke and said, hey, do you want to go train to be a Jedi? Hey, Rocky, do you want to go fight Apollo Creed? Hey, Frodo, would you like to take the Ring of Power to Mordor and save all of the Middle Earth? And then what does the hero respond with?
Yes.
No.
No.
No. So Luke Skywalker says, I can't go train to be a Jedi. I've got work tomorrow. Does that sound familiar to anyone listening? Or, I don't even know what to do. Or, that's not my job. Or, who am I to go, in the case of Rocky, fight Apollo Creed, the champion of the world? Who am I to go make $1 million, to heal my ancestral trauma, to start a company? Who am I? So the hero refuses the call. And the reason why this is encoded in all of our hero's journey is that it is an absolution for all of us who have refused the call. Because answering the call is hard. It's brutal. And you know what's coming as soon as you answer the call. People are not afraid of their greatness. And people are not afraid of failure. People are afraid of what success will require from them. That's what people are afraid of, because you know to go make that $1 million, to heal, to fix your relationship, to establish your spiritual practice, to quit drinking. And whatever these things are, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to suffer. This is where we talked about sacrifice earlier. You're going to sacrifice as soon as you start engaging with your purpose, your dreams, your aspirations. One of my favorite quotes is an old Roman proverb that says, fate guides those who will, and those who won't, she drags. Write this down, or maybe go get a tattoo or something. Fate guides those who will, and those who won't, she drags. So if you do not answer the call, if you do not make time for your health, you will make time for your sickness, because fate is always more powerful than you. And she has an endless amount of escalation for you. No matter what, if you refuse your call, relationships, career, money, health, she's coming with one up until you finally hear her. And usually at that point, it's too late because you are on the journey. Luke Skywalker did not answer the call and his family gets wiped out. Dorothy does not answer the call in Kansas. All of a sudden, fate comes in the form of a tornado and just sucks her out of Kansas, or sucks Luke out of Tatooine. What happens then is you're pulled into the next phase of the story. And this is called the road of trials, hardship, adversity. In Dorothy's case, quite literally, it's the yellow brick road of trials. It's adversity and flying monkeys and poison and betrayal. And that's where she gets to go into. In Luke's case, it's the Death Star. It's like, oh my God, I'm not ready for the Death Star. I have no training. I mean, I'm Here I am dealing with Darth Vader all of a sudden. So we don't generally get eased into the road of trials. We're in over our head. It's the deep end of the pool immediately. You are in the giant churning sea of chaos. You're stuck in the dark woods. And what's incredibly important for all of us who either intentionally entered those woods or were pulled into the woods by fate, there's a solution or survival protocol embedded in the story. And there are three things that every hero receives. Number one, they receive allies. And this is terrifying for those of us who are out here. What if people don't like us when we start telling our truth? What if people no longer want to hang out with us because we're not drinkers anymore? That's terrifying for a pack animal like a human. And the truth is, you get better friends. You get more powerful allies. And they're waiting for you right now. There are allies out there going, okay, when's she coming out? When's he coming out? Because we need them. And so allies you cannot wait for. You get them once you go. You earn your allies. So if you're hanging around with knuckleheads, you're a knucklehead. You have to leave the knuckleheads. Once you earn the right for, drop the zero, get with the heroes. Once you start hanging out with the heroes, your life's going to change. You're going to get in shape. You're going to make money. You're going to, have discipline because that's what they're doing. So the second thing that you get is called elder wisdom. None of us know what we're doing. We're all crippled by imposter syndrome. We're all desperately hoping we don't get found out, that I'm a fraud. Like, ooh, Angela, who is she to run a podcast about men? And the truth is, that's universal. You cannot make a plan for the unknown. A lot of people are waiting like, well, as soon as I know what to do, as soon as I get the information, then I'll start. Doesn't work that way. You get the plan once you start.
I totally can vouch for that. It wasn't until I started walking that the direction started to reveal itself a little bit. And I'm still in the dark, but it's exciting.
And there's, I think it's Seneca, one of the Stoics. He said, when fate calls, all you can hope for is to be active and prepared. You don't have a plan for her. You cannot plan for the unknown because the unknown is inherently unknown. You can't make a plan for that. Now, you can have practices, protocol, friends. You can be engaged. That's the best way to deal with tremendous unknown. So elder wisdom, you earn by starting your journey. That's why they call it elder wisdom and not elder information. All the men who are listening to this, I am only giving you information. Now, the moment you actually start your journey and then you go, oh, yeah, that Philip Folsom dude. Oh, I get it now. But you don't get it until you integrate. You walk it, like you said. You have to walk it. And then the third one that all heroes, and again, you're not heroes yet, all main characters receive is what's called supernatural aid, which means once you have committed to your journey, once you're on it, then you get carried. You get synchronicity. You get the blessings. You get access to all the things that were already there, but you didn't see them. And you go, oh, wow. Those three things are the things that enable the hero to survive on their journey. And in your case, Dorothy, she receives her allies. She receives the Tin Woodman and the Lion and the Scarecrow. She receives supernatural aid in the form of Glinda the Good Witch. She starts learning about how to, navigate the poison poppies and all these things. And she finally gets to Oz. And so this is the transition between the road of trials and transformation. This is the most important part of the whole story, is this moment. She finally gets to Oz, and the wizard is going to save her. Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to save Luke. Gandalf will save Frodo. Dumbledore will save Harry Potter. Morpheus will save Neo. There's always an authority who is going to save us. And it's a lie. And this is encoded in the story. No one is coming to save you. And in fact, every single one of those characters that I mentioned dies. Gandalf dies. Dumbledore dies. Obi-Wan dies. Nick from Rocky dies. And when Dorothy gets to Oz, because the wizard is going to save her, he's not a wizard. he dies and becomes a regular dude. So that is the event in the hero's journey called the abyss, or the ordeal, or the dark night of the soul. And it is the moment that we are completely destroyed. And this is the moment that all of our fears are true. We are inadequate. We are a failure. All the reason why we didn't go on this journey in the first place, it all comes to fruition. And we realize it's the end of the story. That is rock bottom. At that point, all these characters, you can just see the collapse, not only in them as individuals, but it's the moment when the story itself dies. And Jesus himself had this moment on the cross. What does he say to God?
He said, "Why did you forsake me?"
Yeah, I did everything. I tried so hard, and now it's done. All this work I did, and it's done. All this work to get to Oz, I've been betrayed and let down. It's over. And at that moment comes salvation. After the crucifixion comes the resurrection. When the phoenix burns to death, she's reborn. The moment the hero sheds his or her skin, then they're reborn, not as just the main character of the story, but now as the full hero of the story. They claim the mantle of the decider, the mature man or woman, who now has the ability to sacrifice, claim their kingdom, do the hard things. That's the moment where they become the hero of the story. They drop the victim story of, oh, the world is happening to me. That's a victim story. And they realize that they are happening to the world. The moment that Dorothy has her abyss and she's been betrayed, she realizes that she, number one, has a pretty badass crew. She's got a metal dude with an axe and a lion. And then she realizes, wow, I've kind of batting, 100-0. I have never lost a battle. I have already killed 2 witches and taken all their stuff. I always had these magic shoes. And if you reframe the Wizard of Oz as Dorothy being the hero or the boss, you realize is that she just lands in Oz and kicks ass all the way through that entire kingdom, getting exactly what she wants. The difference is that she didn't live like the hero. She lived as the victim. And the same thing with Harry Potter. He's the boy who lived until Dumbledore died. Then he became the chosen one. This is the story of the hero's journey. We all at some point have to go through the abyss, and our old stories burn to death. They die so that the new story can be born. And that monster in the cave always has our face on it, because the thing that was actually that we could blame for our life. I'm fat. No, because my dad is fat and the fast food industry. Or I'm poor, or I'm broke, or the government, or whatever your story is, it's you. This is the bitter and powerful pill that we all must swallow as men, to realize that everything bad about your life, you have to own that. And then everything good about your life, you get to own that too. Now choose. That's what a man does. And at that moment, we've entered the next phase of the story, which is transformation. It's where instead of fighting the dragons, we get to ride the dragons. We have clarity of brand. We understand our purpose. We understand the whole world is not against us. We get to work with the world. And there's resolution and synergy and partnerships. It's a really vital, exciting time, and most men never get here because they're stuck in their victim story. All adolescent men are inadequate and they're victims. And they're waiting for someone to save them. They absolutely know that there's someone to blame. There is no one to blame. When Luke Skywalker goes into the cave training with Yoda, he says, "I'm ready. I'm not afraid." And Yoda says, "Well, you will be." And Luke goes into the cave and there's Darth Vader. And Darth Vader, by the way, stands for, in German, the Darth Vader, which is the Dark Father. So it's really our dad, all of us men. It's really our dad. I'm going to blame my dad for everything because he was not around to teach me how to be a man. If you're an adult male, you don't get to blame your dad anymore. Because when Luke Skywalker cuts off Vader's head in the cave, right, it's a metaphor, under his helmet is Luke Skywalker's face. We're terrified of becoming all of that weakness we see in our dad, all the corruption, all the failures that our dads embody, that we blame them for. We're terrified of becoming that. And the truth is, if you fight monsters long enough, you will become a monster. We all have to take on some monstrous tendencies when we fight monsters. If there are other veterans who are listening, you had to learn how to kill people to go be a soldier. That's monstrous. That is a monstrous thing. And you accepted that. If you end up fighting monsters too long, you end up becoming one yourself. That means you become your father. You fight your father too long, you become your father.
So for people who are unwilling to do the work, that's their kind of fate. They're going to become the thing that they were fighting against.
And you will loop through that, refusing the call, yanked into the road of trials, and then running from the cave you fear to enter. Cycle forever. It is almost, I'm going to actually say it is impossible to go through the abyss by yourself. So if you are a lone wolf man, you are not going through the abyss by yourself. This is why the initiation process involves the tribe of men, the mentors, the elders, your brothers. They're the ones that they basically push you through. They drag you through. They support you through. Can't do this alone. And it's one of the reasons why the lone wolf culture that we have right now is so catastrophic for men, and why men's work is so important.
And on the rise. Because people...
Oh, yeah. It's just, men know it now. They feel it intuitively.
Your work, your K4 men's work.
K4, which stands for King of the Four Houses, which refers to those four masculine archetypes. Our journey starts with what's called the Rite of Passage. It's a 13-week online curriculum of masculine studies. And we spend multiple weeks going through the hero's journey. We also spend multiple weeks doing the masculine archetypes. We dig deep into Iron John. And a lot of our work is about emotional regulation. And that's part of the thing that comes along with becoming a man, is that you no longer are subject to being pushed around by your emotions. You can still feel them, right. But what you feel about being inadequate doesn't stop you from doing what you need to do. When we're in an adolescent activated, emotions we're dealing with are fear, obsession with self, anger, depression. There's a whole bunch of very maladaptive stuff. Just to close the loop again really quickly, is because we left things in the transformation phase, and I just wanted to get you home again.
Yes, let's go home.
How we all come home again is the number one, the realization that there is no destination to the hero's journey. It is always a return home. It's different, not because home is different, but because we're different. We have been transformed. The world and your life is not getting any better after this journey or any other journey. However, you can get better. Now, the moment we get better, stronger, more capable, more aware, then all of a sudden life is better. Even though life itself is what it is, we return home and we see it again for the first time with our new eyes, our new power, our new tools. And Joseph Campbell says that the purpose of the hero's journey is not to save the world, but to save ourselves. And in doing so, we end up saving the world, because the effect of a vitalized person vitalizes. Meaning, if we're healthy, our families are healthy, our careers are healthy, then our communities are healthy. Our work is the thing that heals the kingdom. And that is held in the metaphor of the Holy Grail, which is what every knight wants, their hero's journey. The Holy Grail is the cup of Christ. The Holy Grail is that object that if you drank from it would heal you. And if you brought that back, to the kingdom, the king and the kingdom would be healthy again. So ultimately, the hero's journey is about healing yourself, but by doing so, you have healed the kingdom, whether that be your family, your corporation, or our country.
I love that. When you're willing to do that inner work, you stop transmitting those things that you've accumulated over generations. You stop it. And then you can leave a new legacy for your children, who, of course, have to do their own work.
Absolutely. The risk of that, I see a lot of men and the men's work movement who are being run by adolescent men, because the easiest way to get validation is to provide service to other people. Well, there's a lot of men that they read a book or they immediately start the process of trying to elevate other men without having done their own work. And this is called spiritual bypass. So if you haven't done the work, then it's going to be inauthentic. It's not going to work for you. Like, you have to go through that transformational process yourself.
I can't thank you enough for really enlightening me. And it brought up a lot of emotion for me, especially when you said the thing that I know that nobody's coming. I'm going to have to do it. And I really had an experience with that last week. That realization, and it's really heartbreaking. And I think you have to take a breath, then get up and do what you need to do. I just appreciate your generosity for being here.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And let me leave with kind of a little blessing to everyone. And this is another Joseph Campbell quote, because he's the hero's journey guy. He says, "We need not fear this journey alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us, and the labyrinth is fully known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero's path." You know, stories don't exist to tell us that there's dragons. We know that there's dragons. What these stories tell us is that the dragons can be beaten. That's the reminder. Is Dorothy comes home. Dorothy gets what she wants. Dorothy wins. And so do we all, if we follow the thread of the hero's path. Don't quit. Get with your allies. Achieve elder wisdom. Say yes to your journey. Do the things you know you're supposed to do. And yeah, they're hard and they're scary and they're overwhelming. That's the game. Yeah. Make the sacrifice.
Well, thank you so much. Can you let people know how they can contact you, or the best way to look for you?
Really simply, the men's group is called K4, and the website is k4men.com.
That's an easy
Letter
one.
K, number 4, men.com. Hey, don't show up light. If you want to join, we demand that you are committed to growth and service. Non-denominational, it's not political, it's not religious. All walks of life are welcome, but be committed to your growth and the need to serve other people.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.
Godspeed.